Welcome to Off the Beat, brought to you by SBI Mutual Fund. I'm Jagu, and this is the space where we track down people who have left fabulous corporate jobs and are now pursuing their passion. We have, as a matter of fact, one of them with us today. We have Nikhil Taneja. He's the co-founder of YUVA. And before we get into what it is that YUVA does, here's a little bit of background. Now, Nikhil has always been in media. Okay, he's worked for a national newspaper, HT. He's also been on the television and video side of things. He's worked with MTV, Viacom 18, YRF, all of that. He's also teaching journalism at Jai Hind, the College of Journalism. But most importantly, right now, he runs YUVA. Now, the thing with entrepreneurs, especially people who have just about started out, either right now or even a few years ago, money, cash, fund flow tends to get lumpy, sometimes non-existent, sometimes comes like God has given it. Sometimes it can be a tough ride, sometimes it's easy. All of that is true. The point is, we need to smoothen it out. We need to have savings in place. We need to plan for the future. We need to plan for emergencies. We need to plan for certain contingencies, all of that. So to help us out with that, so that we can, in our own little way, contribute to what Nikhil does over at YUVA, we have Sanchita Mukherji. Now, Sanchita is the co-founder of Blue Edge. Blue Edge is a multifamily investment office. Now, this is something that has been founded by Sanchita and her partners after over 2 decades of experience at multinational banks. Nikhil, Sanchita, thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having us, Jagu. Very, very excited to be part of this podcast.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sanchita Mukherji, and I'm very happy to be on this show.
Absolutely, as am I. Now, Sanchita, I'm going to ask you to be a fly on the wall so that we're focused on the input that Nikhil gives us. Nikhil, let me come over to you.
Sure.
As we figured in the introduction, lot of media experience. We're talking films, we're talking OTT platforms, social media platforms, reality shows. You've produced, you've directed, you've scripted, you've done all of that. By now, you could just as well have been producing a Bollywood film, but you're not doing that. You chose to co-found YUVA. Now, YUVA is a media organization that focuses on youth issues. I want you to expand on that for us, and then we'll get into why it is that you started YUVA. But to begin with, what is YUVA?
Yes, absolutely. I could have been in Bollywood. I spent actually so many years of my life in Yash Raj films, which is really the mecca of Bollywood in many ways. But YUVA is a Gen Z-driven youth media research and impact organization. Our aim is to create socially conscious entertainment. We work on purpose-driven solutions to empower young Indians. We try and create meaningful content online and start meaningful conversations offline. What it means is, we genuinely just pick up issues that are very urgent for young people, including mental health, gender equality, LGBTQ rights, body positivity, everything else that young people in India are going through. And we try to find an accessible way of reaching them so that they feel a little less alone. How do we find interesting ways of saying important things? So we do online content, we do campus activations, we do research, but everything is aimed at impact.
You mentioned Gen Z, and so much media is focused towards that. So much of social media, as well as money in terms of advertising, in terms of content being created for the Gen Z population. We're all focused towards that. Is it fair to say that they have the most life exposure as far as a generation is concerned? But at some level, they're also one of the most, if not the most conflicted generation. Am I being fair when I say that?
You are quite on point with regards to the conflicted generation, and a lot of that is when you say life experience, I'll actually divide that into two, or life exposure. You said so. I'll say they do have the most exposure than any other generation because they are digital natives born with a mobile in their hand. They have grown up, googling anything, any question they've had pages and pages of Google answers. What that has done is that when I was growing up and I had when I'd get into an argument with my parents and my parents would say tumhe kuch nahi pata or you don't know anything, they were probably right. I actually did not know enough at like 13, 14, 15. Except that when a parent today says that to a Gen Z kid, they are wrong because the Gen Zs probably know more than their parents. They have,
If they don't know it, they Google it.
yeah, if they don't know it, they Google it. And by the time they finish Googling it, they probably know like 10 times as much as their parents do. So they do have that understanding. They do have the knowledge, the awareness, the intelligence that, none of us did at that age. But what they don't have is the life experience because they are still very young. And that's where the conflict comes from, that we treat them still as young people, and as kids, in many ways, except that their intellectual capacity is a lot more than anyone of us at that age, so they are intellectually many times are equal. Sometimes they're even better than us. They're smarter than us. They know far more than us, but they just don't have the lived experience, because of which, there is that eternal conflict. I feel like the generation gap that has always existed has now kind of turned into a communication gap.
Fair enough. Okay. So yes, communication gap. Now let me come to that. Something has made you shift gears, and quite dramatically, as a matter of fact, to focus on this. What made you say that there is a gap here somewhere? And I want to come back to what you had said, to put out interesting content on important issues. What made you personally make that shift?
So, short answer, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety when I was 29 or 30. I'm 35 right now. It hit me in a way that I could not have imagined, because, the understanding of mental health, unfortunately, is that it only happens when you are at a bad place in your life, or you're at a low in your life. Something's going wrong, and then suddenly you have mental health issues. I'd become, a GM at 30. But when I was diagnosed with the anxiety, I just, I mean, anxiety does a lot of things to you. It makes you question.
Well, it can be life consuming.
It can be life consuming, and it can also make you question all your life choices, and it can make you, and again, I don't think it was necessarily related to the kind of work that I was doing, but it was more about, it kind of pushed me to question uh, every bit of the time that I was spending, and whether or not I was finding meaning in that time, and because I just felt like, if after achieving everything in many ways that there's a middle class checklist that my mother might have had for me, if after having achieved that at such an early age, I'm still not finding fulfillment inside of me, then there's clearly something more over here. And I was living a life path that I think comes very pre-decided for young men in our country, that here's the
Yes.
mission
There is a
statement you have.
template. Please follow the template.
Yeah,
Don't fool
yeah,
around.
exactly. So there's a mission statement you have. You focus on that mission statement, get a certain amount of money, get a house, get married, you have kids, and retire someday, and then maybe if you have some time, you can be happy. And my basic question was, why can't I be happy right now? Why do I have to consistently follow a certain set path? And the moment I kind of took a break from my career. I kind of quit everything I was doing and just went on a little bit of a sabbatical to understand who I am outside of the story in many ways that has been given to me by my gender. These are deep things, but it
No,
took me.
fair enough. I see exactly where you're coming from. And it's an issue that a lot of people are grappling with.
We are in a world where every young person has so much to say, but there is very few people who listen. And I wanted to start an organization that listens to young people. So I keep saying research a lot, but we do a lot of listening. I've gone, again, I think my claim to fame, so to speak, in YUVA has been that before the pandemic, I went across to 150 campuses. I traveled the length and breadth of India. I went to 34 cities. I met over 10,000 young people in person between 2019 and 20. And I just heard them. I've now heard young people grappling with it, and I've been changed by their stories, and I want to now find a way of how do we listen to young people, how do we reach out to them, how do we make them feel alone. That's really the larger philosophy of Yuva.
So tell me what Yuva has been doing all this time. I know y'all have a tie-up with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You're doing a lot of work with the social media platforms like Amazon, Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. What is this content that you're driving, and what does Yuva then hope to achieve?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a we do a lot of things actually. We have multiple verticals. The front facing, of course, is content. We create content on social media, on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And these are short format videos around issues that I spoke of. So almost every day we have about 5 to 6 pieces of content. We have about 300, we have about 400, 450, 500,000 followers across the social media platforms. So on a daily basis, we have an editorial voice about issues that young people, and we present it in an interesting way, as I said. Outside of that, we do a lot of campaigns with some of India's top brands and nonprofits. So from a Tinder India to a Amazon to an Instagram to a Facebook, I mean Meta right now, to IBM to Spotify to Fast Track, you name it. We have worked on socially conscious and purpose driven campaigns with them, or Gen Z focused campaigns with them, and we do the same similar kind of work with nonprofits. So as an example, just last month we launched at the National Health Conclave, National Mental Health Conclave in Gujarat, a research paper and a manifesto for the government of Gujarat, in association with UNICEF India, about the challenges that young people are going through and what their demands are. So it was a youth manifesto, one of a kind that we have launched. And on another end, we've just last month, tied up with YouTube India and did a event called the Pride Class of 2022, where we had 10 queer young creators who we felicitated and gave them graduation. I did a graduation ceremony for them. So we've,
Wow.
yeah. So we've,
That's recognition then.
yeah, exactly. So we are trying, to work on how do we find a way to drive impact in the lives of young people through doing, whether it is research, whether it is campus activations, whether it is content pieces, whether it is campaigns, whether it is social media. We are now actually just entered into original content as well. So I'm actually going to go back into producing a little bit.
There you go.
We've just launched 2 short films with Amazon Mini TV. We are working on a long form series as well. I can't talk much about it, but and they will all have all these issues we're talking about at that scale.
Now, what we discussed, Nikhil and Sanchita, I'm going to get you in here. The discussion that we had was a couple of primary aims that Nikhil and his family have. One is the ability to buy an apartment, to buy a roof over one's head, to have a roof over one's head. And Nikhil and his partner are also thinking or planning on having a baby. Is that not right, Nikhil?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to have one, not 8, at some point soon. Yes, for sure.
Now, Sanchita, we wanted your help, and Nikhil, I'm going to ask you to address this directly to Sanchita in terms of what you're looking for and the kind of corpus that you believe you need. And then Sanchita will hopefully be able to break it down for us and give us a target. Hi, Sanchita.
Hi. Before we start, I would just like to say, Nikhil, this is fascinating. What I just heard is like really incredible work that you've been doing. And yes, I'm a person who's very, very passionate about the capital markets. And my work is in the capital markets. However, I think I would be very happy to address your situation over here, given the kind of incredible work that you've been doing, and ready to address the financial independence. Yes.
Thanks so much. And thanks so much, Sanchita. That means a lot to me.
Now, Nikhil, tell us in terms of primary residence, what you're hoping to plan for.
So, of course, we live in Mumbai. So, anything that you want as a, 35-year-old professional who has been working for 15 years, I think, even though this is a really privileged conversation, of course, but you would want to have some sort of a 3 BHK when you have a kid at some point. I mean, I live in a rented 2 BHK for the last few years, and I mean, both my wife and I are working from home. So again, there's a lot of privilege there. We managed to have jobs, we managed to still earn money. So I can't deny that. At the same time, Mumbai is the kind of place that if you are within 4 walls for a certain amount of time, you do get suffocated. There is a lack of space in general. So the aim and the dream is that if you are going to have a career or you are going to have a life in a city like Mumbai, you should have a little bit of space. So that's really the aim. The aim is to kind of reach 3 BHK, which at a very, even if I want it in the suburbs and not a very outside bit of the suburbs, Malad, Goregaon, kind of a suburb. At the very minimum, it is a 3 BHK is going to be between 3.5, 4 crores.
I have a couple of questions, Nikhil. Just straight off the bat, would you be having any specific savings that you're looking at a down payment, or not at this point in time?
No, so I want to get to a place where I'm able to give at least about 50% down payment. I also don't want to be oppressed by loans in many ways, in a way that I don't want to live. I mean, I've chosen to leave my, so to speak, very corporate side of the media industry, and started something of my own. So while I do take a salary for myself, it is obviously not at the same lines of what I could have gotten had I been working in a multinational, or even an Indian production studio. So I do have savings. It's just that I don't want loans to dictate my life. So I want to be at a position where I have at least 50 to 55% down payment, so that whatever else I am left with, I can find a way for the next 5 to 7 years to be able to pay it off for 10 years at the maximum, but not have to change my lifestyle or do work and choose work in a way that I have to always thinking of paying off loans.
Perfect. Now, let me congratulate you. You're absolutely on the right path, if I may say so. Because, see, if you let's understand your exact breaking down your exact need and want, and the questions which I asked, the answer to that into more financial parlance. So, you do have a capital, right? And you need to augment your capital by using the power of compounding to achieve, say, a 50% of the down payment amount, and augment that further by taking a home loan, right? So currently, actually, the home loan rates are one of the lowest in the industry, because of the interest rate cycle that's already started increasing. The cycle's now moved forward a bit, so it's right now on the upward moving path. I mean, if you were to just read the headlines on a daily basis, however, the home loan rates are still substantially lower than traditionally what they have been, right? So it's always a good idea to definitely go for the home loan. Now, getting back to the power of compounding, I'll just take a simple anecdote. Say, if you imagine a snowball as it rolls down the hill, it hardens and keeps adding its size and picks up pace. By the time it reaches the bottom of the hill, we find that it has transformed into a huge and hard snowball with incredible speed, right? So, the basic point I'm trying to make is, to achieve your goal, if you're starting off without a capital, it takes that much more time to achieve that next level of capital to address your dreams. However, here, let's assume you're targeting a 4 CR house, right? And assuming you have, say, saved up 1 CR, I'm just assuming this. So even if I were to look at different asset classes, for example, if I were to look at equity, right, which is known to be a very growth oriented asset class, right, vis-a-vis fixed income. Fixed income would be your bonds, fixed deposits, all of that, right? Land, gold, etc. All of that are separate classes of assets. So let's assume growth capital, which is equity, and within equity, since you've just started, or you're just visualizing a portfolio for yourself, you're like a first time investor, if so, hence not direct stocks. If you were to look at well diversified equity mutual funds, say for example, any decent well diversified equity mutual fund, for which you'll have to go to a registered investment advisor and understand how that works. If I were to take, say, the Nifty 50 TRI returns for the last I don't know, 20 years, 15, 20 years, assuming a rate of return of, say, 14%, if you invest your 1 crore, and you just mentioned you have a horizon of 5 to 7 years, given a 5.5 years, you should be able to generate another 1 CR on top of it. So 1 plus 1, that will be 2 CR. So 2 CR is what you'll have in your pocket to make a down payment, and the rest of the 2 CR should definitely go and take a home loan, because of all the tax advantages that is there, plus the fact that the interest rates are low right now in the economy. So that would be very beneficial. So, but having said that, what we need to understand in equity mutual funds is that there is a lot of volatility involved in the interim. So if you're looking at 5 years, which is great, I mean, one can envisage, 14, 15% a very healthy growth of return. However, what we need to be very mindful is, as an asset class, it is extremely volatile, right? It is open to the vagaries of the market, and equity returns are very lumpy in nature. So you'll have one great year, you might have two really bad years. However, it is a very long term asset class, and it's one of the most significant asset classes in our generation where one can expect to have a wealth creation made. So, keeping that in mind, one should just look at, say, maybe starting off in tranches in SIPs, investing your capital into well researched, diversified equity mutual funds, and then giving it that much time and leeway to generate that return for you.
That sounds encouraging, but and at the same time always a little scary, because there's always a little nervousness. I've not um, been a savvy investor for that matter. Ankur Wadiku would get very angry, but I've always preferred fixed deposits, to anything else. But now I'm open because I feel like I'm also at that stage where I do understand the value add of having greater returns. And I am now at that place where I need those greater returns.
See, you will be very comfortable in knowing that equity mutual funds actually provide very good risk diversification by investing in a portfolio of stocks across different industry sector. That's point number one. And having said that, they are managed by professional fund managers who have a lot of experience, expertise in investing in stock markets. It's also a very, very well regulated industry, and SEBI's oversight makes mutual funds relatively safer compared to if you were to do, say, direct stocks and all of that, because that is definitely not advisable. That tantamounts to trading and speculation and all of that. And, as a first time investor, you should definitely not go down that route. But mutual funds are highly transparent investments. So AMCs, they disclose the underlying securities of mutual fund schemes, the exit loads, capital gain taxations, and various performance metrics are there. And given that you, as an investor, you're saying categorically that I have 5 years plus kind of a horizon, yes, it's definitely a growth asset class that one should look at.
Sanchita, actually, he makes an interesting point. I just want to break this down. If we have an apartment that we're looking at buying for 4 crores, he wants to make 2 crores as a down payment, and then the other 2 crores will be a home loan. And that home loan can, of course, be 25, 30 years. We're assuming he has a crore already in the bank in low yielding investments like fixed deposits. You're saying he should take that crore and make money work for him.
Absolutely. Make that money work smarter for him. Because see, if he keeps it in a so now I'll go on to other asset class. If you continue with the fixed deposit, if you continue, say, with the PPF, given, I mean, there's nothing wrong in doing so, but different floats for different boats, right? Say a person investing in fixed income assets or a fixed deposit, etc., would be looking at income generation at a certain point in time. That would be typically a person who's retired and who needs a cash flow generation. The objectives here are very different. For Nikhil, he's young, right? He's clearly looking at growth capital because he needs to have a house, right? He's not looking at cash generation or a steady flow of cash income from his fixed deposit and all of that. So he cannot meet with a growth capital at a 6% or a 7% rate of return.
Sanchita, let me ask you another thing, and I'm sure you also have clientele, or you've come across many such situations where someone in their 30s, not even halfway through their career, there's more than one thing that needs to be plotted, whether it is buying a house, retirement, savings, etc. For Nikhil, it's also the plan to have a child. Is it too early for him and his wife to already be plotting that also, in which case it might take away a little capital from what he's trying to build for the apartment, or now is not the time to do that?
I love your choice of word, plotting. Nikhil, are you plotting with your wife to have a child?
Yeah. We put together flowcharts and put stickers on boards and then connect them using threads.
Oh no, there goes all your romance.
Yeah, just like
Down the drain.
the Finns do. Yeah.
So all right. No, but very, very valid question. And yes, you're completely right. People in their 30s have different objectives, and a lot of it would encompass having a primary residence, definitely having a child, planning for vacations, planning even for retirement. You can have multiple goals. And why not, of course? But then one has to envisage how do you achieve these multiple goals given that you have a limited capital and a limited surplus. Now, when I use this word surplus, again, a process of introspection can be delved into on what can be set aside, right, on a monthly basis if one were to plan for having a child or any other instrumental need that you have from the objective of wealth creation, right? So when I talk about a surplus which is generated per month, you need to have a simple, very back of the envelope kind of a calculation, which is your income generation minus expenses with a 25% kind of a buffer that you keep for contingencies. So expenses would mean all your premiums that you pay for your life insurance, health insurance. These are very, very important things that you must have because that covers you from all aspects of the vagaries of modern living, right? So income generation minus expenses minus taxes, right? So that gives you the magic number, which is the surplus. And you can use this surplus to keep aside again as a risk or a growth capital with a horizon of 6 to 7 years with the objective of wealth creation. And because you're generating this monthly, very, very useful in utilizing this, deploying this into the capital markets with a growth outlook, a double-digit outlook in 6 to 7 years.
That looks like I have to make you a success now. Don't have an option.
Absolutely. Go for it.
But Sanchita, what you said is actually very interesting. For someone like Nikhil, and that's true for a lot of us, when you're in the sweet spot where you have some capital in the bank, but not all that you need, that capital works towards one goal, but an income that is coming in on a monthly basis, as long as we're careful with our expenses and tax planning, that creates its own surplus month on month, which can be used towards another goal. Did I understand that correctly?
Absolutely. You're so bang on right. You've nailed it. So people specifically in their 30s kind of seem to get a little lost in what to do with this surplus. So if you just do this very rough calculation, again, back of the envelope, like you have a particular income generation, then you have your expenses, which is your EMI on the car, the premiums that you pay in life insurance, health insurance, EMI on a house, minus taxes. So what you get is the surplus number, and that itself can be deployed month on month as your risk or a growth capital, which you can set aside for 6 to 7 years with the objective of creating a wealth portfolio for yourself.
Nikhil, Sanchita, thanks so much for doing this and for being part of the show. Nikhil, more power to you. And Sanchita, one can only hope that you can continue helping a lot more people as you have for Nikhil. Thank you very much, both of you all, for being part of Off the Beat. This was Off the Beat, brought to you by SBI Mutual Fund. That's what we do. We talk to entrepreneurs, we talk to change agents, we talk to people who are taking the path less traveled. Hopefully, it also helps you, sets an example for you, helps you figure out what you want from life. And if we manage to do even a little bit of that, do let us know in the comments. And of course, stay tuned. There's going to be plenty more episodes coming your way. Thank you so much for listening.
An investor education initiative by SBI Mutual Fund. To know more, visit fundguru.sbimf.com. For service-related requests, write to customer.delight@sbimf.com or visit sebi.gov.in for other queries. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.